Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you're interested in study abroad or you're interested in career planning, you're at the right place. I'm Dr. Maina Chawla Singh. I'm an educator. I'm a professor with international experience in teaching both in India and in universities in the US. I'm also trained to teach research skills, and I teach people how to think about themselves and what they can do best with their education and their careers. I'm hosting this on behalf of Leverage Edu, which is India's top-ranking university admission service. We also provide full stack support for students at every level, undergraduate, grad, PhD, regardless of the subject you want to do, whether it's data or it's analytics or it's MBA or a PhD or STEM. So you can find us on all the social media handles. So we look forward to seeing you. And there's also a 30-minute free counseling session should you have any questions. Today, I'm speaking about a subject that very often we don't speak about at counseling sessions or within counseling services. And that is a subject of career design. It's a special term and it's a special process. So you might say, oh, career planning is something we do all the time. Sure, we do it and we should be doing it. But we don't always do it successfully. Sometimes we are influenced by peer pressure, sometimes by the social setup around us, sometimes often by family pressures or family expectations. And we don't always make smart choices, which is why you see so many people who become engineers and want to become civil servants. We see many medical doctors who then want to go into something else. We see people with STEM who then want to join think tanks and policy and so on and so forth. So this is where a certain amount of vision is important and a certain process is important. Career design is something specific. And this is what this session is all about, because it is a creative process to envision a career which combines both short-term and long-term goals. Not just long-term to say it'll be great if you can be an engineer or a doctor or a data scientist just like somebody else in the family, or because that's what everybody is doing now. So it's not a quick decision. It's about looking at reflecting on personality, on preferences and values. What do you value closest to your heart? If you value sports and team spirit, you will do best if you are doing something which is close to that industry. So it's like working on a prototype, like design prototypes or designing a product. It's like that because it's based on research and neuroscience. Neuroscience, because you need to understand where you are and where you think you might be a few years down the line. So it's about pushing away internal and external barriers that are keeping you or might keep you in the future from choosing the life that you really want. So you'll say, why should we care? Why should we care about career design? Apart from the fact that, yeah, it's good to have some career. Okay. You know why? If you're running a company someday or already you're working in a company, why should a company care for career design? Because it's widely known through research that satisfaction in a job, if you're satisfied in your job, you are more deeply engaged with the business, which is paying you. Employee engagement is reflected everywhere. It's important in the way things function. It will improve the work and make the work of HR easier. It'll improve business pitches. It'll improve productivity. And ultimately, employee well-being shapes company profitability. So it's both an individual and also a corporate goal to put the emphasis on career design, which perhaps we have not been doing in a systematic way. So career design is an antidote, which you think about and you implement before you actually reach and find yourself in the middle of an unsatisfying career. It's a proactive process. It's a process that you will indulge in and you will work through a process of planning your career path, not just a destination to say, I want to become that. What is the path going to be? 10 years, 20 years? Will it be a combination of small daily changes that you start today or now? Or will it be the overarching modifications? It's actually both of those. The small steps today and the bigger overarching modifications that you will make down the line. So it's like creating a mosaic. You know, a mosaic is a beautifully done arrangement of shapes. You should Google that word. It's a lovely word and it's a lovely concept. So let me now look at the process. We've spoken enough about what it is and why it's important. Let's just look at what we can do about it. So there are 3 stages. Let me go to the first stage. This process, the first stage would be to reflect. You need to reflect regularly on the trajectory of your current career. If you're already in a first-time job, you need to reflect. Is there something that you need to do now to make your tomorrow and day after tomorrow richer, better, more satisfying? So you need to think of the short term and the long term, and this will help you in determining your next career move. So let's look at some helpful questions as you reflect. First of all, what do I like most about this job? Or maybe the first question should be, what do I want most from a job, any job? What do I want most? Then, what are the parts of my current job that I like? And if you're doing a fellowship or you're doing an MBA program, it's something you should ask even now, because then you look at the program and then you say, what are the aspects of this program I like best? Which are the aspects I think I want to develop? Do I want to go into marketing, sales, consultancy? What do I want to do? So wherever you are, you need to reflect on what are the parts that you like. Next step, of course, what do I not like? What you don't like is going to help you to eliminate what you should not be doing in the future. Does this job bring me close to my long-term goals? That's going to be your third most difficult question. If it doesn't bring you closer to your long-term goals, then you're doing something wrong. You're wasting time, you're wasting energy, and you're wasting a precious phase where you need to be looking at what is going to grow out of what you're investing. How does one do that? Yes, it's important. Think about it yourself. But you know what? It's also good to speak to trusted friends. I've seen that very often for all young adults, some support from trusted friends and colleagues can really go a long way. Your colleagues who you trust, who you're comfortable with, they know your strengths and they know your weaknesses. They have watched you and they have watched you do really well in some things, maybe even better than you thought. And sometimes they have seen that you hesitate, and they will be able to tell you that you hesitate to do something and you'll say, oh, I didn't realize that I hesitate. But they will help you to shed that hesitation. So sometimes your trusted friends and colleagues will know you even better than yourself. So use that support to ask people, get constructive feedback. Don't be offended with feedback that you get. I'm sure we can all tell when the feedback is genuine and when it's constructive. But if it's a little bit negative, instead of reacting to it or being on the defensive or feeling upset, take that away with you. Think about the feedback and reflect and see, was there something there that you need to think about? I feel that feedback is actually a very, very wonderful thing to get. The problem usually is, what do we do with the feedback? We should be able to see within that feedback what is something that we can develop. It's like an outside eye. I'm not saying that everybody who looks at you or talks about your strengths is going to be objective. Your friends, your family may be biased. And bias is not a bad word. You can have good bias, you can have bad bias. Anyway, the point is, take feedback, work on it, think about it. And that's something that will give you the idea of where you stand and what are the things you can build on. What's the infrastructure of your personality on which you can build a superstructure? All right. Then, if stage 1 is about evaluating, what is the next stage? Planning, of course. Because if you're just going to be evaluating and not making a plan, what's the point? Right? You just don't need a scorecard sitting in a corner. You need to use that scorecard to do something about it. All right. So this is the stage when you're going to say, what do I need to actually do? Does this mean I should look for a new job? That might be a big step. It won't be easy. Nobody is recommending that you quit a job and start looking for a new one. No, you think of that in a feasible way. And you think of how you can phase that. If you're in the middle of an advanced program, you can think about how your next move or your next choice of courses before you graduate from that can actually move you in the direction in which you need. You can shift the courses you do, you can shift the research that you do a little bit so that you begin to specialize in a deeper way in what you like. Don't hesitate. Even if you have signed up for a program, it's better not to stubbornly complete something you don't like. It's much better to retrace one's steps a little bit and rework that. There's no such thing as having to do something that you started. Yes, we should complete it, but you don't have to keep pushing in a direction when you know that at some point you will have to retrace that or retract from it. So you could be looking for a new job. Is that an option? But it doesn't just have to be that. Is there something you need to do to prepare for a change? Another degree, maybe? Another program? Maybe another certificate? Maybe a study abroad program? If you are already at an entry-level job, and we actually have been advising many students who we know did 2 or 3 years of working. One of them was a chartered accountant I interviewed recently. Another one had done data science, and they did 2 or 3 years of work. And then they decided that they wanted to go for the next degree. But by then they knew what they wanted to do and how they wanted to specialize that. So sometimes all you need is just a tweak. And a tweak can actually just be a boot camp. You can upskill and start specializing in a particular area, even if you are not going to change things by going for an advanced degree. And gradually, you can collect many of those short courses and develop for yourself and on your CV a specialization that can get you into a different spot. Now, here's a tip. Regardless of whether it's big or small, plan the steps and write them down. You know, we don't have a culture anymore of writing. We just jot things down on the phone or on the tablet, and we just think it's all done. But very often for clarity of mind, and they say this is established in neuroscience, that just writing things down does something between the brain and the hand so that you process things differently and you get more clarity. So try it. There's no harm trying. Write down the steps. Write down your overarching aims. When you have your overarching aims, 5 or 6 or 3 or 4 of them, then you can list out your next steps. What do you need to do to get there? What's the plan you need? How do you manage to be smart and make sure that you're on a path which you have thought with clarity and in an organized way? Now, here's a little alert for you. And the alert is, make sure that your goals are specific. Don't just say, I want to be successful. Oh, everybody does want to be successful. So write your specific goals. Where do you want to be? What is the kind of position you want? Is there a particular geography in the world where you want to be? What's the kind of money you need to earn? What's the industry in which you need to be or want to be? Your goals should be measurable. So step 1, they should be specific. Step 2, they should be measurable. Step 3, they should be achievable, realistic. And finally, they should be timely. I'm going to repeat this. Your goals should be specific, measurable, so that you can look back or look after 5 years and say, can I say that I achieved some of this? So how do I measure that? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Have a timeline, put it out there, and see how it looks. Finally, now all this is done. You have a plan, you've done reflection. So now what? All this is no use if you're not going to execute it. So the third stage is execution. All of this work would be no use if you're not putting into action. What you've discovered about yourself, you need to put down into action. The important thing is career design is not about what you do tomorrow or next month. Career design is about the plan you're going to execute. No need to do this right away. It's a slow, measured plan of action. And we know that when you do things in a measured way, which has calculations, realistic calculations, which are underlying it, you need to think about financial security. You need to be practical. You need to see that it's feasible in your circumstances. You can dream big, and you must dream big. But your practical steps have to be rooted on the ground. So your vision can be high up. Your steps have to be practical. So I want to say that regardless of what stage you're at, having career design is an extremely useful and important process that is worth engaging in and mastering. So in conclusion, the last few minutes, I want to recap as well. So I want to say that as you design your career or as you engage with this process of career design, you will learn a lot about yourself. And as you go along and you keep evaluating, you will learn more and more about your own strengths in as candid and as honest and as authentic way as possible. You will identify your strengths. Are you adventurous? Are you a risk taker? Are you not risk taker? Do you like doing new things? Are you curious? If you're not somebody who likes taking on new things spontaneously, you need to think. Maybe you need to have safer options because that's who you are. Then there's no point you're thinking that you'll be in a startup ecosystem, because with the risk involved and the constantly changing aspects of the startup ecosystem, you may find that your personality is not suited for it. On the other hand, if you are a risk taker, then you will be somebody who will say, all right, we are going to make 10 attempts. Maybe they won't work. Maybe it'll work on the 9th attempt. And then after 10 attempts, I'm going to decide, do I still try 5 more times? Do I have the staying power to be able to do it? The staying power is not only about your financial status, it's also about personality. And personalities are different. Therefore, career design is not just about saying, I have job security. It's also about saying, how productive will I be? How will I experience well-being and satisfaction? Because that is what is going to make you truly successful. You can be good at your work, but you may not be successful. Just a paycheck is only one aspect of success. I'm not really arguing that financial security is not important. Of course it is. But if you are in a profession and you've spent 10, 15 years in a job and you have the money and you have the material benefits and you're not satisfied, you will not be a great leader wherever you are. So that is something that is worth paying attention to much earlier. I also bring in one other aspect that I mentioned briefly, but I want to emphasize that, and that is values. What are your values? What do you care about? Are there things you care about beyond the material security? If you care about social well-being, if you care about environment, if you care about any of the causes, equity, equality, income inequality, gender. If you care about any of those things, if they are important to your heart, just keep that in mind, that you will want to include that in whatever work you do. It's not difficult to include those things, even in a corporate job. You might be sitting in the corporate world, and there is so much of CSR work, corporate social responsibility, there is philanthropy, there is so much giving that goes on. So those are not things that are necessarily contradictory. You can be doing, if you're the kind of person who is, likes intellectual work, who likes research, researchers are actually needed everywhere. They are needed in tech firms, they are needed in corporations, they are needed in government, they are needed everywhere. So don't just think that because you love research, you have to be only an academic. You can actually plan your path and engage with career design that will include your love of research with everything else. Even if you like law and the legal profession, there is so much research to be done for every court case. So think broadly, think deeply. Your values are as important as your strengths, because if you do things that you believe in, things that you value, causes that you care about, you will be amazing at whatever you do, because it will satisfy the pocket and it will satisfy your soul. So think about what is also your ideal life. How do you see yourself at 40, 45, 50, whatever you want to see? The benchmark is for you to choose. But your career design must include engagement with all those aspects of yourself. So with all those aspects, your strengths, your values, and your concept of an ideal life, you start matching it to reality. What is the state of the industry that you're interested in? So that's when you start looking at the material aspects. What companies are hiring for your kind of ideal job? You have to look for that. Sorry. Which are the companies that you want to work for? That's when you start looking. What are the skills and experience that you have for that job, and what are you missing? The minute you start thinking of what you're missing, it's going to give you a path about what you need to do. How are you going to get that set of skills or the experience you need to be qualified for that job? And then you learn the effective strategies that work with your strengths to build yourself into that perfect fit job. So I'm going to do a little quick recap about the tips for the process of career design. First of all, perform a self-assessment. Assess yourself. When we are honest, can do a really good job of assessing ourselves. We just have to be honest and not be afraid of admitting that there are certain areas that we are not good at. Secondly, identify your must-haves. What are your long-term must-haves? I must have satisfaction, I must have money, I must have this, I must have that. You need to make a list of your must-haves. And they're going to be different for everybody. At least the order in which you do them are going to be different. Then make a list of jobs to explore. What kind of jobs are they? Research the jobs and also research the employers, because that's important. Unless, of course, you're going to start your own work. Okay, then get the training if you need it to qualify for that. Update your resume. You want that resume to be compelling, persuasive, irresistible for your employer. Find the job that is your dream job and apply, because by now you have built a resume with the skill set that is required for that job. And then continue growing and learning. That, of course, is the key. We're all lifelong learners. And that's the only way to be successful, because then you keep upskilling. So in a nutshell, as I conclude this session, I hope that you really enjoyed thinking about how you can do your own career design. So in a nutshell, what does career design do? It reimagines the monotonous, tedious job search of sending your resume to HR offices one after the other. It pushes you into self-discovery, into dreaming, into building castles in the sky, and then build the staircase to get to those castles. The process is not easy, but it's about your life. And you know that anything of enduring value is never easy, right? Thank you.